back to my channel. My name is LolaAjisafe, and we are continuing our conversation on interracial relationships. Now, of course, to recap from last week, I'd spoken with one of my brothers who has a podcast, Unscripted, the podcast, and he had made some comments, and I just, at that time wanted to talk to him about it, and really was about, men dating, women of different nationality, preference versus choice. And my brother here in the corner, I've introduced all of them, decided that he was left out of this conversation and definitely wanted a piece of the action. So to introduce everyone once again, of course, you all know me. Welcome back. My brother to is this my right? Oh, to my left. Anyway, that's Ayo up there with me. Going down below me is my brother Dikwa. And going this way is my other brother Lanre. So everybody, welcome back to, this is Interracial Relationships Part 2. And so, Lanre, to start with you, I know how you are exactly to do. Lanre, you really felt strongly, and you said, and I felt bad because I've thrown everything together so quick. You had said at the time that, how could I have this conversation without you? So just to introduce you, just briefly, my brother is a well-known photographer in London, England, does other things, father of two, devoted father, but also has very strong, ideas and opinions about race and interracial relationships, and definitely believes in educating the young ones. He's trying to bring them up and really have them have a good understanding, have your own opinion, but have all the facts available. So Lanre, over to you. So you saw us talking about interracial relationships and how it said that some gentlemen have a preference, be it somebody just all what's in front of them, or if it's just actually a choice to actually go to another nationality. You said you wanted to talk on it. How would you like to start, sir?
You see, I hear the idea of, preference a lot. People always say, oh, yeah, look, you know what, there's nothing wrong with black women, but my preference is that I would rather be with a white woman. It's just a preference. And, every time people say this, the first thing is that, not that I've ever been one of those people who say that, but there's something that is never really taken into consideration. And the thing is propaganda, number one, and colonization. So these are not really preferences, it's conditioning. You're conditioned to believe that these women are better. But then, Dikko, you did say something when you were speaking, and you said that actually, my preference is the way the woman looks. That if the woman, in fact, I think you said as long as she has nyash, and that's where I actually agreed with you because, if I was going to have a preference, it will more be the way the woman's going to look. So she has to have a certain physical appearance, and I would say, yes, that's my preference along all boards. As long as she's a woman and she's a sensible human being and she looks this way, then we could. But for me to actually say my preference would be white women, I would definitely have to say that, that is years of conditioning, because even if you've never been to London before in your life, a day in your life, and you live in Badagry, what you're watching
Well,
is generally
can
going to
preference come as? Sorry to cut you off. Can
go
preference
on.
come as a result of what you're used to having around you? So
Well,
in
you
this case,
see,
if white woman is what you're used to having around you, I just prefer it that way because
well,
you can't be
that won't
bothered to.
necessarily just be preference. That would just be because it's there. It's almost the same way as the whole story about black people committing more crime than anybody else, and but in reality, people just commit crime with whoever's around them. It's an area thing. So it's the same with the women. So in so I can speak about myself. I went to prep school in Dorset. There were only 3 black people in my school, and we were all boys. One was older than me, one was younger than me. Where were we going to see black women? That wasn't happening. So essentially, till I was 16 and I went to Nigeria, I had never had any type of relationship with a black woman other than my sisters and my mother. So at no time in my life did I ever think I don't want to be with a black woman, or I don't like black women, or I think black women are a little bit more than this, than this. It was just they were not around. And obviously, as you're growing up, you're in certain areas, the same thing happens. So it's essentially what is around you. So, and at that time, what was around me tended to be mostly white women. You know, when I was young, I went to Nigeria when I was 16. So at 16, we lived in St. John's Wood. I was not seeing any black girls my age at 16 that were, you know, around that I was going to go to. So obviously it was white women. But anytime there were black women around, and of course, you know, going to Nigeria. In fact, you know, I would say going to Nigeria and being with black women actually shaped, you know, a lot of my ideas about women. And it wasn't a negative thing, it was a positive thing.
Well, like
You
your
know?
choices and like what you
My
like
choice,
in a woman, what you
definitely.
look for.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. You know, it's almost like I think before I went to Nigeria as a 16-year-old man, you know, my ideas on what I would go for in a woman was very different, as physically as well. Physically as well. You know, it was totally different. So it's almost like, you know, it matured me in a sense and it made me see the light. And as you know, Dikko would say, see the ash. You know, so yeah, it grew me up quickly, you
So
know.
what would you say, I guess, if you're kind of listening, because everyone kind of gave their opinion last week, like, you know, what they suppose. I know you said at the top of the conversation, you said it's conditioning. And it's like,
It is
so if
conditioning.
someone is sitting down listening to us right now, they will be asking the question, what do you mean by conditioning? Are you trying to say that I don't know what I want? Is someone telling me what to do? Like, are you...
No,
Mhm.
it's not. So, you know, if it's not conditioning, then your preference should be a female that looks the way Big Yash, I don't know, flat stomach, I don't know what it is you're looking for, you know, that would be, you wouldn't, it wouldn't just be about a white woman. But as I was saying earlier on, even if you live in Badagry and you're watching television and you're watching movies, you know, there's a very high percentage that you're watching, you know, Western movies, American movies. If you're into sport, you know, if you're listening to music, you're probably watching a hip hop video, or God knows, they could be watching Madonna. I don't know. They could be, you know, so the ideas and even the adverts and the stuff that they see. So at a very young age, the ideas of what you see and desire as cool is being formed. You know, whether you like it or not, it's being formed. So therefore, as you're getting older and you're seeing all these things and you're listening to all these things, you know, so it's almost like, you know, when I went to Niger when I'm 16, who is not hearing people say, ah, Onyibo good though, ah, Onyibo, you know, everybody, ah, Onyibo good though, ah, man, Onyibo, ah, see that Onyibo, Baba, ah, Onyibo, ah, see that car, oh, Onyibo, ah, see that woman, ah, Onyibo, see the blonde hair, ah, Onyibo good
So
though.
following the European standards for beauty is what you're saying. We've kind of been conditioned to
Correct.
watch and believe.
So even not being Onyibo, but being a man or a woman who was born in the West, and you go to Nigeria, just the fact, almost like guilty by association, but in a positive way, because you have an English accent, you have an American accent. Oh my gosh, this person all of a sudden seems alluring. Admittedly, it's not the same anymore, but it very much used to be that way. And so it's just like, just as long as it has anything to do with Onyibo, somehow, some way, it has more value to it, and you've been conditioned for a very long time to believe
But I
this, for a
think,
very long time. Go on.
but I think also experience leads to preference, right?
Go ahead.
Your
Let's hear more.
experience, your experience with, so if your experience with black people has been bad,
Mm.
right? It will make you, and then the experience with the white people have been dope, right? To make you
Yeah,
not like black people, like just like how some people
yeah,
don't like Nigerians because they term all of us as
yeah,
419. So
yes,
they rather deal with like other African. I
yeah,
prefer to deal with a South African because
yes,
this Nigerian guy is a 419.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
I know, and
this
it's funny
we
you said.
never
Oh, Ayo, go ahead. Go ahead. Let me hear you, Ayo.
we never speak well about people that do that though, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, that isn't that what when you get these white people that they're like oh, like I got robbed once by a black guy and now I can't stand black people, or you know, there's a lot of cases like that where it's just like, okay, you had this one isolated incident with
And
like
then you just generalize.
yeah, and then you're just like
Right.
they're all like that, and we never
Right.
we never really praise that type of thinking,
But
because
we
we can see
no, it's true.
because it's something close to us. We can see that that's not fair.
True. So what you're saying is a
We
great
can
point.
very much see that.
We criticize it, but the thing is, isn't that what we're doing? Because you will hear a lot of brothers, a lot of black men who say that black women are troublemakers. They're too much. They're rah rah rah. They're aggressive. They're in your face. They do this. They do that. They're bitter. They have they have all these things.
It's the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I feel like a lot of the time, some of the reasoning, not to say that it's bad or good, but we're just kind of talking about the spectrum. Some of the reasoning behind the preference for another race is based in that. Particularly here in America, you might hear a guy say that, black women, they talk too much. They always have something to say. All these things, but these generalizations, what are
big time? Big time.
So
I mean,
you don't think
I
it's
said
from
to you last time. Wait, hold on a
they
second.
They don't always come from nowhere. Having said that, they don't always come from nowhere.
Of course it doesn't. But it's just like
in either of the cases that I mentioned. Am I lying?
No,
am I lying?
Well, obviously, but there's an example of everything in everybody and in any way. So it's just like, as I was saying to Light on the last time I spoke to her, that you go out with a group of guys and everybody's like saying, oh yeah, man, I want to get laid, I want to get laid, I want to get laid, and then you're all going out and then you see, hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Then you get into the club, and then of course most of these places, especially like if it's outside London, the majority of the women are going to be white. So then you see somebody in the distance and man, that's an amazing figure, and you realize it's a black girl and you go, damn, guys, look at her, man, she's hot. And they respond by, man, oh boy, I want to nyash tonight, man. I don't want to waste my time with anybody that's just going to be talking. I want to nyash. I'm looking to get laid. I don't want to go over there and start talking and wasting my time with that black girl over there. I mean, the amount of times we hear that, and the funniest thing is that the person who actually ends up deciding to go and talk to the black girl finds out that she's an amazing woman and he gets laid, so it's just these stereotypes. I mean, and then you get the other side, because as I said, I've met a guy that also said to me, Jesus Christ, why would I want to leave my house and go out and start talking to all these white girls when I'm trying to get laid? So everybody sees it from either side, but if you want to get laid, you speak to women, really. I mean, the whole thing about the black woman, because my experience is not that I have been out and I've spoken to black women and I've just been like, oh my gosh, man, why did I even bother speaking to that woman? I mean, I've wasted my time. No, it's not that. Yeah, of course, I've spoken to some black women that I really did not want to entertain their attitude, but the majority of the time, just like most normal people that you speak to, they've been cool women, And of course, Dipo, I know you're in Niger, so I'm not saying that my experience, because obviously I'm in London right now, and I'm not saying that my experience is the same as your experience that you're having in Nigeria, because obviously I'm fully aware of the madness that is going on in there.
No, your own is different now. Apart from experience, you are experienced in plenty different. So it's okay for you to talk how you're talking. Because we know your doings, you understand?
Yeah, but Nigeria is a different case. But at the same time, I really do believe that even in Nigeria, there are correct women there. And even with the madness that is going on there, it's just about, who are you going to meet? When you meet the person. Right. But yeah, I know there's madness. I mean, if you're, I'll probably say in Nigeria, if you're trying to meet somebody in a club, you're making a big mistake.
Okay, so I want you to say something on that, why you think that, but also there's something we discussed earlier on when you just kind of broke down, which kind of fits into the stereotypes when you're talking about how somebody might have this certain opinion, but in your observation as a man looking on the outside, you can see that the common denominator is not necessarily the person they're accusing, but them. So they're saying that, okay, I stay away from this type of woman because of this, but then you see that actually what they say they're staying away from is they're still surrounded by it, but still it's that situation where they can't look inwards, they can only look outwards.
Right, because that concept of the law of attraction and the things, or all women are bitches. Essentially you're going to attract that. And I know a guy who he has a habit of attracting really, I don't want to say mad, but really interesting women. And as long as I've known him, when he's with black women, those women were very interesting. And he's always complaining about these women and saying about how these women always doing this and doing that. And I'm saying to him, but you know what? I'm not having that problem myself. Who are these women that you're going for? And he used to always say these things. Then he comes to London and then he's meeting women. And the type of madness these women are doing is ridiculous. But these women are now white women. So he was saying to me that, oh yeah, black women are mad, but white women are okay. But I'm like, wait, hang on a second. Didn't you tell me that you had your television smashed twice? Was it not that you said that she was from Romania, right? So maybe it's not about her being a black woman or her being a white woman. It's about her just being an interesting personality that is going scatty. It's to me, it's just about that. I don't really think, and then so this thing about aggressive women, aggressive black women, or aggressive black men. I don't really buy into that idea because I really think that, well, what I did security for 14 years, when I dropped out of uni. And I halfway through that, I actually said that, what, I believe that black people are actually more aggressive. I started saying this to people. I was saying this to my friends who were other black men. I was saying that look, you know what? I think maybe this is the case. But when I actually started looking a little bit closer, I was right that the black people were a little bit more aggressive. But then what I realized is that they had reason, because those doormen, the way they were behaving 5 seconds ago with a white man, they switch immediately to when this black man comes or this black woman. So the behavior that they're giving to them, the only way you're not going to rise is if you have no self-respect.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you're
Yeah.
going to want to wait, because you're being treated in a way that's going to make you. So actually I thought, yeah, actually rightfully so, because if somebody's going to treat me like that, I
I'm gonna respond.
sometimes you're seeing black people that are actually doing that to other black men because they themselves have been living in a society where they are subject to all these stereotypes consistently. So in their mind, they have bought into the idea of black people being more criminal, being more aggressive, being more this, being more that. So immediately you see people who dress exactly the same way you do, but when they come to the door, you judge them by the same stereotypes that you are judged by.
So we're kind of a product of our environment, which is something we said something like that last week when we were saying that, we might say that, because I think Ayo, I wanted you to jump in now. How I was talking about, femininity, and I was saying sometimes it's harder for a woman based, let's say black woman who's been through something, to just switch on and be feminine after, having things rough and having a different experience of the world compared to another sister who hasn't had that experience. So everything is just, butterflies and roses. And so I had to kind of get you in. I know you were saying, how we're saying about the stereotypes, and you said some of them are true or some of them are justified. Like, do you want to?
No. What I said is that they're not all based on nothing.
Aha, right, exactly. What do you mean by that? I wanted to hear that.
Meaning that if I take the same example, like of white people being scared of black people, maybe it's that maybe it was this isolated incident that caused that, but it's also like, oh, look who we got here. Hello.
Hey, what's up, bro?
What's going on, everybody? What's good?
Hey. So,
what up, Chick?
so yeah, what I'm saying is that that it might have been that isolated incident, right? Like, okay, I got robbed by a black person, so now like I don't fuck with them. But also, they can do that because there's also a wider narrative of this behavior, right? Like, as in, it's not like if they got robbed by someone from like, I don't know, Fiji or somewhere, they're not gonna be like, oh yeah, like
Right.
these guys, these Fiji guys, they're out of control.
Yeah. Oh man, I've been
It's
robbed by an
because there's
Englishman before.
it's because of the wider narrative, you
Yeah.
know, of crime and criminal behavior, etc., that fairly or unfairly in different countries is attached to black people. I'm not going to get into the whether that's right or whether that's wrong or whatever. And likewise, if there's a reputation for black women being aggressive, it might, of course, be this person's one isolated incident, right, of speaking to black women or his issues as well. But when he reports that issue, it also forms part of a wider narrative, right, which is like, as in, are we saying that it's coming from nowhere? Question.
I won't say that, but I also don't want us to be, because everything, there's a spectrum and there's a balance, and I feel a lot of the time that balance isn't there, particularly on this topic, which is why I wanted to talk about it. In fact, let me kind of give, so up at the recap, we've kind of done the intro. We talked about how we talked about interracial relationships on the last video, and of course Lanre saw that and he was like, yo, I want a piece of the action, this is what's going on. So we kind of first started talking about as opposed to looking at race, men typically, like Lanre was saying, that Dipper was saying, that they're looking at features. There's certain features they like, and those features are probably things that they might parlay into. If they're going to another ethnic group, they're still looking at those features. And of course, we're now talking about the reason why some men will actually vocalize and verbalize and articulate the fact that they don't want black women will be based on stereotypes. And we're now saying those stereotypes, how accurate are they? Are we not, should the man be looking at himself as the common denominator and not just saying, okay, all black women are this or all black women are that, and they're this, they're troublemakers, they're aggressive. And then we'll also give another twist where we said that, thinking of it like this, that with black women or with black people as a whole, is it just the environment? There's a difference in environment. So it's like if you have one white person walking here on lane A, and then 10 minutes later, the black person is walking on that same lane A, things are somewhat different. People treat them different. The environments treat, like a police officer, for example, may talk to someone differently 1 minute and sees a black man and he already has his shoulders up and is assuming the guy's a criminal. So it's just how the environment is treating them is how they react. So they're literally just reacting to the environment, and not because they're more aggressive or more of this, but just how they're being treated and how they walk.
Yeah.
So the main thing, I guess, with you is like, for your opinion, in terms of, because we're kind of going with this, one part is like, okay, with interracial relationships, when you see a man saying, I have a preference for this and a preference for that, what is your opinion?
Nothing really, to be honest. I mean, I always say love is, I don't even want to use the word tricky, like there's something wrong with having a preference for different people. It's just, love is just one of those subjective roads you go on. And that's not to say that you can't be brainwashed because you're on the road. I just think it's not my place to really say anything. It's probably for you to discover down the line if, your preference is affected by your environment and people around you. But as I see it, as I take the person, I think we had this discussion before. You might see social media, the females will be arguing for having a taller man, and the men will be arguing for having slimmer women or whatever it is. And I feel like these things are all related. Like, it's just not really for me to tell you what you should or you shouldn't do. So that's how, what I don't like, I think, is obviously public disrespect, public disrespect of your choices, public disrespect of your opinions. But after that, everything is okay. It's fine.
So Aldi, so for example, let's say you have a friend. I'm not saying you have a buddy, but you live in London. You have a buddy who has very strong opinion. Like to him, his preference is not just that he has a preference for dating, someone who's other than black, but he's also very vocal about it. And he's saying that his preference is based on the fact, something negative. He just thinks that black women are aggressive. You might have heard someone say that, or he always has trouble with them. He doesn't have peace at home. So this is why he has this preference. Have you experienced that? And how would you, I guess, react to that? If you were going to sit down with your friend, would you say anything to this friend of yours? Let's say you guys are sitting down having a beer. What would you say and how would you approach it?
I don't even know, because if I'm being really honest, all the way honest, I'll just probably be reduced to me teasing him from time to time. Would it ever reach a real serious discussion. I don't know. I don't really like doing that with people. But if he calls for it, if he asks for it, if he instigates the conversation, then yeah, we can have a conversation. I've come across quite a few people like that, and I just tend to I tend to mock them because there's a stereotype of people who do things like that. Hello, there's a stereotype of people who do things like that, and they tend to when they see the object of their affection, they always seem to exaggerate their beauty and exaggerate their features. And it's like, oh my God, that person's amazing. And that's when I might come in and just be like, yo, what's wrong with your eyes? Or is everything okay? And, we may have conversations like that because, like I said, those stereotypical people, when they do things like that, it's so, it's comical almost. But yeah, I don't really think it's my place to have that conversation unless the person wants to speak to me. In my present situation, though, there would be a little clash. The person would either have to keep that decision to the choices they make in their own lane. Because when you come into my house now, some of those decisions may jar with what you see there, my children, my partner. So you just have to be very skilled there because then we might have conversations. But yeah, otherwise.
So to throw it out to everyone, I'm going to have you guys, it's going to be two things. So if we're talking about interracial relationships, men, is it just, can we talk about your opinion on just, love is love versus, what is this rooted in self-hate? And if it's one or the other, what would we see? Because the truth is, it's 2021. You really, you date who you see, who's in front of you, who you share things with. That should be how it should be. Nobody wants a toxic relationship, and I don't think toxic relationships are skewed or peculiar to a certain race or another. But the thing is, when you're looking at someone going through this, what do you see to say, okay, you know what? This person, this is more based in some self-hate, something else is going on other than this, as opposed to just paint it all just one color.
Who's that to?
Who want to? All of y'all.
Can you summarize that thing you just said?
Okay, so I'm saying that when you see a guy, one of your homies, they're there in South London dating, she could be Indian, she could be white, she could be Asian, she could be anything, but he's clear on saying I have a preference for everything other than this, other than a black woman. When would you say or observe that this self-hate versus just this is just love?
I'll probably ask why. So from the explanation I'll be able to I'll have my own opinion, whether it's self-hate or it's, I don't know. I'll probably ask why.
For me,
if someone tells me that they prefer black people to white people and she's white, I'll probably go why. What is the experience? Or what?
I had a friend.
I mean, and it depends on the context of the conversation. So it might not even be worth it to ask, depending on what led to the conversation. So, I mean,
go ahead, Ayo. You're about to say something.
Yeah, I had a friend. I was working in this office, and a friend of mine, they were telling me, and I was like in a European country, like just to not beat people up. I was in a country within the EU, right? Working in an office, and this person was saying how their current partner, he's a black guy, and they were saying how their current partner, who was not black, they were like European, was always saying how much they love black men and everything like that, like and how their preference was for black men. And I was a foreigner in that country, and I was thinking, and I even said it, I was like, for me this is a bit dodgy. Like when say you're okay, I'm in Spain now. Say I meet a Spanish girl, and the Spanish girl is saying, like, to the exclusion of Spanish men even, like she only goes for black men. So basically I said in the office, like, for me this is proper dodgy, and like people are just like looking at me weird, like, oh no, but it's a preference. I'm like, but if your preference goes against like your very race, do you not think that intrinsically there must be some kind of issue there?
So
as in, I don't know, like if it goes against it, you might say, okay, like I prefer black men, but of course I'll go for Spanish men. But if you're like, no, I don't do Spanish men, only black men. Like
Okay, so for me,
they're red flags. Go ahead, dude.
So I was going to say, for me, if I was to say I prefer white women to black women, for me to always be about experience. Maybe it was my experience with black people and my experience with white people that made me prefer dating white women. It wouldn't be anything else but my experience.
Yeah, but then
which I think is valid. I mean, you're entitled to your like.
Yes, but
valid,
you know, my question though would be, so that experience that you have with black people, is it more extensive than the experience you have with white people?
Oh, I mean, do that English again, I beg.
Do people where you sabi? You pass the Oyibo people where you sabi or not?
No, at all.
So you don't sabi more Dudu almost than Oyibo, abi?
Of course, no.
But by what type of percentage? What would you say, like 10 Dudu almost to 1 Oyibo? Or
so if I was living like you,
yeah,
it'll probably be 50-50.
But
because
so
I mean, I live in a place where it's relatively, I mean, black
yeah.
everywhere now. You get
so then the question I have is that if you have been with more black women than white women, how do you know whether there's any difference or not between the two? Because all you would have done is I've heard of other people's experiences, which may not be your own.
Right? So what I'm saying is this, right? If I had dated 3 white women and maybe 4 black women, and it was a certain type of experience that I didn't like with those 4 black women, could just say, "Oh man, this fucking earpiece has gone off." Where did you stop hearing me?
We can hear you. So you're simply saying that your interest would be skewed based on just that one-sided experience, is what you're telling us.
So I was saying that if I had dated 4 black women and 3 white women, for instance, and with these 4 black women, it was always a certain type of experience that I did not like. But with these white women, it was always better. Why would I stress myself still trying the black women? It's not, like, might as well just continue the one that makes sense for me. Did you get?
But I mean, so then that would be like going back to. That would be almost going back to what Ayo said. Then that you know what?
That is something wrong with
I got robbed by a black man, so therefore all black people are thieves.
You see, you're not generalizing. You're not. You're just saying that it's easier for me on this side. So let me just follow this side. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's all. I'm not generalizing. I'm just saying based on what I've been through, I feel like it's always easier for me when I go this way instead of going. You get when you go right, when you turn right at the end of the road, you get to where you're going faster than you get to when you turn left. So why don't you just keep going right?
And you don't think it has anything to do with maybe because of the particular type of Omo that you entered rather than the Omo being a Dudu Omo?
I mean, well, it could be, right? It could be.
And that's what I want.
Now, something, they always cause something. Do you understand? Like,
no, of course.
But this conversation you guys are having, that's what I want people to see and appreciate. It's not me saying that, okay, you shouldn't or you should. But the thing is, as a person sitting down observing this or going through life, when we're making these generalizations as humans, should we now sit down and reassess how we're thinking and say, okay, we shouldn't just always think, well, I've had this bad experience with A. And therefore, and it's a natural human conclusion. Say, I've had this bad experience with A. So I'm not just like me. I might say, like, I'm done with Geminis, yo. Like, Geminis is it. Like, should that be the way I should be walking through? Or should I just...
That's actually good advice. Good advice to take.
It's like me and Scorpios. So I guess when I mean you Scorpios. You know
really? Scorpios?
Right,
so that's the thing, the question.
Because like, if I was to use the same mentality, I would never date another white woman again.
Okay, can I preface this, everyone listening? And my brother has a beautiful relationship, has 2 beautiful kids with a wonderful woman who's of European descent. But he's always very clear to say that, you know, and I'm going to let you speak for yourself, Lanre, but he's always very clear to praise her. But just saying, you know, at that age and at that time, he was at a different place, still appreciates who she is, what she brings to the table. Lanre, please go ahead. So if you want to qualify that.
Absolutely. Fact. But you see, It has no bearings on whether she's white or not. The facts are still the facts. You know, if I was going to be thinking like, you know, because I've been wronged by white women. In fact, I've probably been wronged by more white women than I have. Not in fact, not probably. I have been wronged by more white women or more white people than I have been by black people easily. So I could now say that, you know, since I've had like some really bad experiences, and in my experience, I'm going to exclude myself from white people. And for me, I think that would be ridiculous because there are a lot of ridiculous people everywhere, and it would mean that I would miss out on a lot of experiences with some really decent human beings that I have met because I am not trying to exclude things because, you know, I've had bad experiences with a woman.
Yeah.
So if I have a bad experience with a woman, I don't think that, man, you know what, she's a white woman, so therefore I've had this bad experience with her, so I'm never
No,
going to date
you're not
another
going to
white
do
woman.
that.
You know,
No, you're
so
not going to do that.
but people do that. Say, oh boy, look, I've had too many issues with black women. I was like, yeah, but who are these black women that you're talking about? Because, like, you know, sometimes you get some people that just draw some negative individuals to them. And like, I have been fortunate enough to spend some time with a few women. And the women that
Experience. That's what I was
I
talking
have
about now.
spent my time with,
Experience.
the women that I have spent my time with,
If you
more of them have been on the good side than the bad side in terms of, you know, the people that they've been in. And that's just purely because of the type of people I choose, you know, because first of all, that person has to be the type of personality that can gel with me. So even if we do have issues, the type of clashes that we're going to have are not going to be the type of clashes that are going to be so crazy that I'm going to be saying, you know, it's more about the type of person. And I fortunately make sure that I don't, whether they're black, white, Chinese, or Indian, or whatever, have that type of person that's going to make my life difficult. And quite often, I think a lot of us, when we see women that we like, we ignore certain alarm bells that are ringing in the very beginning. But because these women are hot and we want to get with them, we forget about those things and then we get with them. Then when it's too late, we start thinking, "Yay, man, this woman, this woman, this woman, this woman." When in reality, we didn't have to be with her in the first place, and we could have said,
can I
Those
bring
days
you
after
back
you
to what you were
smash,
saying?
realize
You know how you were saying initially that if you would do it again, you would do it differently. I want you to kind of bring us back to that.
Because I have had almost like a reset, you know. So 20 years ago, with the information I had in my head right now, I would definitely be with a black woman. I definitely would be with a black woman for numerous reasons. And you know, it's the type of reasons why I think Ayo always says that Dr. Umar Johnson is my boy or my guy. And it's because he's speaking sense. And you know, I believe to myself and I think to myself that I love, it's not about, for me, it's not about that. For me, it's not about that. You know,
Lights on. Release two versions of this thing. Edit one part where you said you'd rather be with a black woman, and release the other part. You get, because
This is
you
going
know what I mean.
uncut. Once I hit end
you know,
broadcast, it's going live.
so
So y'all know this, okay?
and the reason being, the reason
And that'd
being
be
is
dangerous
because,
for him. Lights on.
and the reason
Exactly. I
being,
was just about to
I,
call it a timeout. I was just like, man,
I,
this is not fair.
are you going to allow me to finish?
Please go
And
ahead, sir.
the reason being is because I'm a black man. You know, I have a black mother and I have a black father, and
God bless you.
I do believe that I should have brought another black child. And as Lighton said, I am not discounting anybody that I have been with or saying that there's anything wrong with them. I'm not saying anything like that at all. You know, this is just like a hypothetical thing because Ali is an amazing person. But at the same time, you know, somebody said something to me once,
I
and he
like
was
that
saying
name,
about as the person was saying to me was that, you know, that genocide comes in different ways. And when the guy said that, I was like, what do you
Break it
mean?
down. Go ahead.
I was like, what do you mean? And it's like, you know, more times than not, when people say that word, what you think about there's a whole bunch of soldiers going into a place and shooting up people and killing them and controlling the way, and he said, that's an aggressive version and there's a passive version of it. And I was like, okay, what's the passive version? It's when Black children are not born. I was like, what do you mean? And it was like, essentially, what's happening is that if so many people are deciding that they don't want to be with their own women, essentially, that means that the women are going to have to end up with people who are going to be mixed. So you're going to be having more mixed race people than not. So now the first question that came to my mind when I heard this is that when I look at myself in the mirror, do I value myself as a Black man? And do I think, is there any worth in me? And, as me being a Black man? And I believe, of course, I do. I do. And the only person that can create a Black man is a Black woman. And that's what made me think that. And I have two beautiful children that I love with all my heart. And of course, as I said, none of us have any time machine that we can jump into, but essentially that's two Black children that haven't been born. And yes, my kids are mixed, but
You don't see your kids as Black.
Well, I will allow them to identify themselves and how they feel fit, rather than me saying
so what if they end
that
up
they
with
are Black children. Sorry?
I was saying, what if they end up with white people?
Look,
Would you advise
whoever, I would advise my children to make a very, very good decision when they're making it, because with everything that you do, especially if you're going to live in the West, you can meet a really, really nice woman, but there's certain things that are just going to make your life really difficult, extremely difficult, because whether you like it or not, there are things that are going to be happening in this place that are not going to be, you're not going to be happy with. So let's say you enter an incident where something racial now happens and some dude is screaming at you at work and your boss is, I don't know, something happens. Maybe your boss calls you a nigger or whatever. And then now you get home and you're a little bit stressed, and then your woman now wants to know what's wrong with you. And you tell your woman what's wrong. And she's like, yeah, sorry about that. I hope you get over it quickly. Because that happened a long time ago. So you shouldn't really let it bug you, bruv. Be strong. I'm not saying that that's gonna happen, but things like that have happened. Wait, hold on, let me finish. Okay. And the thing is that even when you do have somebody who is a really good, understanding and sympathetic person, can they really understand where you're coming from? Can they really help you and, make you feel better and give you a bit of guidance on, what to do? But now, if you have a Black woman and you come in and you tell her that, I ain't saying she's going to be a better counselor than anybody else, but she damn sure as hell is going to understand where you're coming from. So you don't even have to say too much. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to break it down. It's not something that you have to start getting people to understand and go and study for 8 years so they can understand remotely where you're coming from. So, then when you now have your children as well, that question that I was just asked, what, so you don't think your kids are Black? Mixed kids are going to have their own identity, and neither the white side or the Black side can start imprinting our own ideas on what we believe they should be. So Tunde has asked me that question already, and I asked him, what do you feel you are? And he said, I'm Black, Daddy. And I was like, well, there you go. That's what you are, And now if they said he's white to me,
so you see him, see him how he sees himself. Is that what you're saying?
I see.
I know some mixed race kids that said that they see themselves as white.
I see him as Tunde. I see him as Tunde.
That's true, though. So no, that I like what you're saying. That's true, because if that's your child, you see your child. You're not thinking race, you're not thinking language. You just see your child. So I love the way you broke it down. Where what, because you'll hear a lot of kids who are mixed where, you know, in the beginning, particularly when they get to like middle school, high school, those ages where there's contrast, there's that need to fit in. It's like, where do they put themselves? And once they come to that decision themselves, you don't want that contrast with your parents and they're just having all this kind of stuff at home or in school. So I love the fact that he says whatever they pick, that's, you know, he will embrace and take that. That's where they are.
So, and obviously, as I said,
can I just segue into something else, because it also might be informative for everyone else? Lanre, the reason why I was saying that as well is because I think it's easier for you to be able to say something like that, as in, you know, you're not gonna impose anything, but you also have to recognize that it's easier like that because you raised your son as a Yoruba man. You might not have raised him as a black man, but you raised him as a Yoruba man.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to speak a bit about that, because I know that there are some people out there with mixed children that do not take this this very proactive approach that you took, and you know, I think it's worth saying something about what you did, the reasons you did that for, etc., etc. Sorry
It's okay. So well, that sort of started because well, in fact, yeah, I guess it does make sense given a bit of context, because it can allow people to understand why I'd even make statements like I made earlier on. So when my son was 2, when Tunde was 2, he asked me what it's like to tell him something about being Yoruba. Just to tell him something. So I was like, okay, my mother's from Ijebu, my father's from Malaysia. We live on an island called Victoria Island, and the language we speak is Yoruba. I understand it, I can't speak it, and I just was thinking of something to say. I think after I said the 7th or 8th time, he turns to his mother and he asks his mother, "Can you tell me something about being English?" So after being in the living room for an hour and a half, just listening to the English side, the Scottish and the Italian side hadn't even come yet. I just thought to myself, oh my God. So how does it go? So her grandfather, who was he, the Scottish one, or was he the one? Yeah, it was a military
mixed heritage.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
I can't remember the thing. So now you've lost my train of thought. Where was I before you cut me off?
You're saying that how you after she gave like 1 hour of her English heritage.
Oh yeah, so yeah, right. So I walked upstairs into the office and just got onto the computer, and I had this Ghanaian brother on Facebook who always shared African history, and so I sent him a message saying that bro, I need some help. You know, I've just realized I don't know anything about being a Yoruba man, and my son's just asked me, and his mother's there, just tell it, bro, give me some help, please. And he responded with one of the most beautiful messages, and he said, bro, when I go to bed at night, I go to bed dreaming that I will get messages like this from my brothers and sisters. And he asked me where I was from, and I told him Yoruba. And he said, man, that's fantastic. That's great. What I've got for you is amazing. And this dude sent me this email. I haven't even finished going through that email. It's just like nuts. So anyway, I went on this tangent on studying history. And then after studying all the history, I realized that there were certain things that were missing in the education that we have, whether where we go to, or whether it's what our parents is giving us. It missed like so much, because I had nothing to tell Tunde, and the dude was, curious. He wanted to know. So once I found out all these things, I felt like I had to share them with my son, my friends, my brothers, my sisters, anybody who would listen on the bus or the train, in the plane, underground, in the air. I don't care where, but I would just like try and share it. So, for me, when I was learning all this stuff, the thing that created the biggest anguish in me is that I could do nothing to change any of this. I couldn't do anything. I had no power to say, hey, look, my brothers and sisters, we need to do this, we need to do that. But the only thing I could do was teach my kids. So I decided to teach them as much as I could about the Yoruba culture, African culture, and the great things that had been done and the bad things as well, and taught them about colonization and everything. And so they know, my son who's 10, he knows more at 10 than I knew at 35 when he was born. He has so much to fall back on. And that's the reason why I felt that it was very important that he needed to know the amazing things that Yoruba people have done, because some of the things that Yoruba people have done, till date, people have not matched. And I felt that when I was in boarding school in Dorset,
just shout out one of them, Lanre. Just shout out one of them.
Oh, hold on a second. But if I was in boarding school in Dorset, and I knew some of the things that I know now, I mean, I wouldn't have felt as oppressed, because when they said stuff to me like, the reason why black people are more criminal than everybody else is because there are more of you in jail than everybody else. And everybody's told me that there are more black people in jail than everybody else. And with your infantile mind, I just thought, oh my gosh, does that mean that we are more criminal than everybody else? But I'm not criminal. But I mean, I would have been able to, whip out some facts that, look, you know what? Yoruba people have done so many things that, to do with mathematics, that if the Yoruba people weren't there, there's certain formulas that, wouldn't be there for us today. There are just so many amazing things. And, in the region, that Niger area, the Great Wall of Benin, I mean, there's nothing like it on the planet.
Right.
There's nothing like it on the
planet. And I think it's with this reasoning, the way you've chosen to re-educate yourself, go into a different path and make sure your kids don't go through what you've gone through, is the basis of conversations like this. Because there really isn't anything wrong with dating somebody of a different race, but it's like, are you going there because you don't have pride in your culture? Are you going there because you believe that, the European standard is the standard of beauty? But if you both believe in yourself, love yourself, but still meet someone, and love is love, and you have that, you're able to share the cultures for both sides. So the children now have a rich culture. They have culture from one end, from the other end. And so it's no more about, okay, it's not about, I'm with this person because the other side, I'm with this lady who's from India because, black women are this. But you're not walking around with pride in yourself, because if you have pride in your culture, then you have pride in yourself. And you can make sound decisions. And even with that, as you are right now, Lanre, you have made informed decisions. So it's like, I think if men are walking the way you are, then we wouldn't be having conversations like this.
Because it has to be more than love, though. Because, you see, the thing about it is that by default, due to colonization, I know British history. I know French history. I know some Spanish. I know American history. By default, I know these things because what am I talking about? I know Roman history. I mean, why in God's name will I know Roman history?
I know it. That's the topic for another video, sir.
So I know this from school because this is what they teach us in school. So the thing is that now we know about their culture. We know. So if you're having a mixed kid with an English woman, you can actually teach that kid English culture, being a Yoruba man. But now, can the mother or the father tell their kids any facts of where the mother or father's from in Africa? Are they willing to take the time and the effort to go and study this history and teach their children, rather than just being people who wanted brown babies? So if that's the case, in reality, that kid's gonna have issues, because it has to be more than just having brown babies, because in that case, it's just like your child has become a type of accessory for you, where you're just walking around, but you don't even know how to do the baby's hair, or you don't even care to go to YouTube to look how to do this baby's hair. It has to be more than love, because I'm sure there are loads of people that really love their men, but have not just taken the time to try and educate themselves so that they can be there more for those children. You know, that's my belief anyway.
So you're saying you don't think love is enough? That it needs to be more.
Love is not enough. It has to be more. It has to be more, because
like, what do you mean? What else?
You know,
like, not to draw it out, but just curious. If someone's listening and saying, well, you know, love should be enough, love should conquer all, you know, you're motivated, you know, you're dedicated to that person. What else do you need?
If you're a black man and now you're mixed and you're born in England, and I'm sure in any other country, you are taught in a certain way and you're taught history about certain things. And eventually you're going to start feeling left out and wondering why all these great, amazing stories don't have anything to do with you. You're going to get that. Maybe some people get to a stage where they don't, but there has to be some inclusion of something that, you know, like you've done, you know. And if you cannot put that in, then how can you really give your children true, real self-confidence? And then if you can't do that, how do they grow up and meet women and know how to love them? Because if you can't love you and your features, then how are you going to go outside and do any more?
So let me ask, OP. Yeah, I know we just have you sitting there chilling, and I know you're not feeling well, but thank you for coming in. It's like, do you have, like, what do you feel about this conversation we're having? Lanre has just said, he's rightfully said that, you know what, you know, he knows about the culture, he knows about the history, but in his personal opinion, based on personal experience, he believes that love is not enough. If you're talking about going into an interracial relationship, that love is just not enough, you need even more. What do you feel about that?
Like I said before, I don't really think it's my place to say that. I think I'm always wary of dogmatism, and when it comes to just, I think love, especially love that I feel like, I want to say that I've covered extensively, but that sounds wanky. But literally, I sorted it out with my dissertation. It was stuff that I kind of did for my dissertation and things like that. You know, I think it's very hard for me just to say, oh yeah. But what he's saying makes a lot of sense, especially from his own point of view. And when you accept that navigates your life, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because, okay, for example, two people may feel like marriage for them is about having a stable environment for the kids. I've heard people express that and nobody's blinked. Yeah, it's fine. That's what you people decide. But for me, trying to tell somebody else that, I don't know. I just, you know, because there are lots of things that can improve our self-esteem. There are lots of things that we probably should know, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. You can get to that place maybe somewhere else later down the line. So I don't want to really go round and round. I'm not sure that's something that I would tell somebody else that they need to do. But I don't think there's anything
not somebody
wrong
else, your
with
children. Your children.
Look, I mean, my children are somebody else. They're outside me. They are, you know, I wouldn't want to start trying to get them ready for them, you know, because maybe there's certain facts that I want to, and even the facts that I might hold on to as ironclad till they reach a certain age. They should know at some point that those weren't black and white facts. Those are just certain principles that I was not willing to budge on while you were living under my roof. Yeah, once you leave, you're free to debunk them and see that, you know, they don't really apply to your life if that's, you know, that's where you want to go. So, yeah, because I think the thing is, because you said so, like, you said, oh, okay, as long as you are in an interracial relationship, not because you hate yourself, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. And I do think, I just don't want to be that kind of person that would make anybody feel. I think definitely you need to ask yourself questions. You need to ask yourself questions if you don't like yourself. But if that's not the case, then I don't really need to be kind of judging your relationship choices. It's not for me to do that, basically. Yeah. You know my life, you know, so you know where I stand. But for you, yeah, that's fine.
No, it's more or less to spark a conversation. Even more so, like, if you're like, who was mentioning your kids, like, if you're gonna have this conversation with them, you know, 20 years from now, you know, if Fair walks in, you know, with a fella with, you know, red hair, you know, red beard, and it's just a conversation. You just need to know she's in the right position, and she loves who she is. She embraces who she is.
I should know that before that moment if I'm a good father. I should know that before she comes in if she's in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Ayo, you're just nodding like, Ayo, you have something to offer before we start trying to do a recap?
Yeah, you see my message. Like, I just wanted to go back to the genocide thing. I think that this is very like these are some very hard words speaking about genocide, because at the end of the day we're still speaking about people's choices. So how can this be genocide? But at the end of the day, I also want to remind people that okay, so this stuff might be happening in Europe, and it might be happening in North America. At the end of the day, the statistic you said, Sis Lighton, was 25%. Okay, so I don't know why we're speaking about genocide when it's 25%. Wait, 1 second. Let me just finish up. There are more black people than in just America and Europe. Okay, there's Africa, and there are a lot of black people that are not just in Africa, but in other parts of the world as well. And for example, Latin America has a huge population. Brazil, more black people in Brazil than any country in the world except Nigeria, as we like to point out. But what the other thing I wanted to say was that remember that that just because one generation has interracial children, it doesn't mean like I want to say that these things, I think they go in cycles. They go in cycles, and just because one generation or whatnot, like they go interracial, it doesn't mean like this race becomes extinct. Like, I mean, look at African Americans. They have a lot of interracial family, right? Like, and they're still here. Just the fact that interracial babies are being born doesn't necessarily mean that black babies are not being born. And so one mixed race child as well. If your child is mixed race, it doesn't mean that in 2 or 3 generations we can't be talking about a black family again. Based on how they choose. A mixed race child that then marries a black person, and their children marry black as well. We're straight away talking about black again. So I think it's more alarmist talk speaking about
my position. Maybe when the guy made the statement, maybe it was that, but when he said that, what I got from it.
So I'm hearing you say he. Who is he that we're referring to?
So at the time when I was studying history, I was listening to a whole bunch of different historians and stuff. I can't actually even remember who the guy was. So it was one of the times that came up that I just thought to myself that, okay, gosh, like, it just like hit me strong. So when I heard that, what it made me think was about my mother. And when it made me think about my mother, it made me think that, would it not have been nice if I had done the same thing my father had done, but a better job? Let me see if I can do it better in the same way. Because, I started like studying like a lot of stats about black women. And I thought to myself, I love my mother and I love my sisters. And, there's going to be a whole load of black women that are out there that are probably looking for good men that I'm not going to find. And it just made me start thinking about all these things. And that was the reason that I started thinking that, I could have been there. Because if I'm going to be saying, oh, yeah, I love black women, I love black women, I love black women, I love black women, because, I've always loved black women. There's never been a time in my life where I could ever say I don't like black women. That time has never existed, and that time never will exist, because my sisters, my mother, my daughter, so on and so forth, so it's one of those things that it just made me feel that it would have been a nice thing to have done. Especially with the amount of history I was thinking, it just felt that would have been the right thing to have done.
Okay. I hear you. We're probably going to kind of go into a recap, but I kind of like where we've gone, because we didn't just stay in one thing. We kind of went behind the scenes, not just the relationship itself, but the product of the relationship, which is also a big thing as well. But I think my theme, and I'll kind of let you guys kind of give your final summations, and then I'll kind of give my recap. And then, of course, explain why, again, we're actually talking about this and why I love us to have conversations like this in the future. Maybe not on this topic, but other things, but just to break down how we feel about things. So, Dick, as I'm talking, I'm really going to come to you first and just kind of give a recap, because really it was Unscripted, the podcast, that was the brainchild for this topic. You know, me listening to you, I'm like, that's my brother, man. I need to talk to him, but not just on the phone, but on the video. And then, you know, Lanre teased me, like right after he watched, like Lanre was really excited after he watched last week's video. He called me real, and you know, when he says like, yo, you set him up, I'm like, damn, no, I didn't. I just played the video. He's like, nah, G, you set him up. And it wasn't a setup, but it was such an interesting, you know, topic for me, because I hear it all the time. Not just me talking about it, but just hearing it around TV, women talking about it, particularly in these big cities. And so that's why I really wanted you to kind of explain how you felt, and you broke it down. But just to recap everything, just to tie it up, in a minute or two, just exactly what you feel. You know, just to conclude as we're closing it up, like what do you think? Because you were the genesis for this whole thing, sir. So go ahead.
Okay, so I'm still saying. So I'm still saying that if I have
I've muted Lanre for you. Go ahead, keep talking. I muted you.
So I'm still saying that.
I've muted them all.
I'm still saying that.
They're all muted.
If I have, he said, okay, if I have like 4 black babes, 3 black babes, and I felt a certain way when I was with this, if I felt better when I was with the white babes, I'll probably want to go with more white babes. But if along the line I meet a black girl and everything turns out fine, then fine, all well and good. I'm not saying that because of that I'm only going to follow white girls. Do you understand?
Okay, that's fine. That's
so I'm just saying.
That's all. No, that's it. Because I don't want anyone to watch a snippet. Because people, that's why I was trying to keep it, short. Because attention spans is about an hour, 6 minutes.
No, because it happens in everything. Yeah. Even in Nigeria, it happens with tribes. Some people will tell you, don't marry Igbo girl. Don't marry Hausa girl. Even down to religion, don't marry Christian, marry Muslims. Don't marry this one. Marry. You get.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if a Yoruba girl and an Igbo girl get together and they love each other, then all well and good.
Then so be it. Of course, I'm with it. So there you go. That's it. That's your lovely recap. Thank you, sir. Okwe, are you there? Okay. Okay. So let's go on to. I can't hear Okwe, but let's go on to Lanre.
Yes,
Lanre,
sir.
you want to give us your recap?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okwe is here.
Lanre, can I ask you a question? Lanre, can I ask you a question?
Wait, hold on. Let Okwe give his recap.
What do you? Oh, okay.
Let Okwe give his recap. Go ahead.
Yeah. What am I supposed to be recapping?
So you're just concluding, like, you see this. If you were on your camera, you would heard us. So I was saying your take on this conclusion. We're closing out. We're about to go, and we're saying, okay. So we talked about interracial relationships. This was the brainchild of Dick was podcast, talking about how he felt at the point in time, and I was able to kind of fine tune it and iron it out. He cleaned it up for us last week. So it's like if you just say conclusion, you have this hard feel, end of story, done, mic drop.
Well, I mean, I think I just kept repeating.
You did.
I feel like
I have no opinion.
Love is love. It's not even so much I don't have an opinion. I do have an opinion. My opinion is not to enforce my opinion on others. That's really it. It's live and let live. And when it comes to love, I don't play around with love, because I won't be with you when you're suffering in your situation. I will give you advice and then go home and sleep. And I don't like when people do things like that. I'm very careful with what I say to people. Live your life, find out your truth, and go and live them. Because there's a particular type of idealistic person that I don't like, and it's the kind of person who wants other people to do the things they believe in. I don't subscribe to that. I feel like even if I need you to believe in what I have to say, I should be able to sway you just by my own life, not by my words.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, go live. Like I jump into the conversation when I feel like people might be lost based on their dating choices. But if we're not talking about being lost, if we're not talking about being brainwashed, then I don't. Yeah, and then there's even another side that we're not talking about, because excuse me 1 second. There's a grime artist in this country. His name is JME. he's actually Nigerian, but you know, he's a British grime artist, and he was on a show, and I think the interviewer was asking him about his relationship. He's married to a white woman. I think he has a child, and the way he tried to break it down is that a lot of people have a lot of things to say about interracial dating. But let me just give you my background of me being in this country that may not be the country of my mother and father, and seeing people day in, day out, are not really being prejudiced against anybody, but using my experience to make a choice, consciously or subconsciously, over who I fall in love with. Why would I want to question myself and even accept criticism from somebody else who has lived another life? And you know, some people may be saying, well, that's still an excuse to say da 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 da. But I saw it for what it was. You know, even if, because there's being brainwashed, and there's also, this is your reality, this is what you know. And if for some reason through your childhood there's a reason why you find this person attractive, not even this type of person, but this particular person in front of you, this individual, more attractive than you might find somebody who is essentially your own skin, your own race, whatever you want to call it, I can't take you back to the past. I can't take you back to the schools you've been in. I can't do that to you. And while, like I said, Lanre is right, because, well, no, I don't want to say he's right. I understand the wisdom of what he's saying, but that is something that he's adopted as a principle for himself, something that he might tell his children, and so on. But I cannot go to this person with his experiences and try to extract all of that for him just because I have an opinion on what he should or shouldn't do. And I feel quite strongly about that. So that's why I'm saying all of this. You know, if anyone ever asks me for my advice or information, I have loads of stuff to tell them if they want to hear it. But I know too many sad people in relationships for me to want to start interfering if you have a chance for happiness, you know. And that's really what I'm going to say about that.
Okay, thanks for that summation. I mean, appreciate you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Larissa, you're on the main stage.
I wanted to ask him something.
Oh, go ahead. Your question. Go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So for you and Dr. Umar,
yeah,
Jesus,
you know, you were talking about how you feel a certain way when black guys go for white babes, right? So what about the black guys that prefer light skinned babes?
Essentially, it's
like the light ones.
It's essentially all the same thing, isn't it? But again, I mean, similarly to what Opai said, you know, I can only really talk about myself. But if you're saying that, you know, you like Omos, but because the Omo is lighter than this other Omo, I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. Personally, to me, you know, but both are gonna do what they're gonna do, you know, and good luck to them. Let them do what they want to do. But
always love.
If you have a type and the type is an Omo, let it be so. Oh yeah, and also I remember, just like, you know, earlier on, Ayo was saying something earlier on about how, you know, sometimes you can get women that would say that they only date black men. I actually myself find that a little bit weird as well. It's not, you know, it's almost like I don't know whether you guys have experiences. Like when I was young, I used to hear people that used to say this a lot to me, and I just feel like it's a nicer version of that. Man, you know what? I don't want to use the exact word that they would use, but they would say, "Oh, I don't like Pakistani people, but I don't mind you lot." And
okay,
if you are really insecure about yourself, when you hear that,
You'll be happy.
you almost, yeah, you almost be like, "Oh my gosh!" So they're saying I'm okay. I'm okay. I've been accepted, so to speak, when in reality,
you lot is a red flag right there, actually. So, yeah.
Right. So, you know, I've always wondered that when a girl says that I only date black men, it makes me wonder what has happened to you that is so bad that you only date black men. Okay. Because I just wondered. I mean, maybe nothing. I mean,
so I'll let you. So that's
maybe they just want brown babies.
Yo,
Maybe
you're about
they
to
just want
come.
brown babies.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's another topic though. But yeah, that's true. It goes both ways. So yeah, that's Lanre's recap. So I'm going to.
Lighter, you didn't catch my pause.
Oh, I'm sorry. You got to pause. My bad.
You said Ayo about to come, and I said pause.
You know what?
There's no editing. There's no editing.
Yeah, there's no editing. I don't know. You must know. This is extremely hard. I'm just going to
let's just smooth this.
Let's clean it up. All right, go Ayo. You're on the main stage,
Take
sir.
this back to PG.
We're gonna keep it. Yeah, we're gonna keep it PG for the YouTube public. Go ahead, Ayo. What's up? What would you like to conclude for us?
Yeah, I would say that I very much agree with everything that Okwe was saying. Live and let live. But even we said at one point we said it's not just conditioning, because I find the conditioning argument, although it might be true, I also find it a bit patronizing, right? Because if people have, it's like those serial killers, and it's like, oh no, like he just had like a shitty childhood, or he just turns into someone else and does stuff and he doesn't know what he's doing. I know people know what they're doing, and at most that conditioning might be contributing to it, but it's contributing to it in a way that is intangible. You will never be able to measure. So how useful is it to throw into the conversation anyway? But I would say that even on the point of well, maybe you should ask yourself some questions, as in, are you being conditioned? No, maybe you shouldn't. Speaking about love, at the end of the day, even if you're the most conditioned fool running around, but you found love, like, what's the point? I mean, your stuff, it might only last 5-10 years anyway. So what's the point in asking yourself all these questions like, oh, do I really love her, or is it just like Vogue magazine or something like that? I think that's a waste. That's a waste of your time that you could definitely be spending doing something better. Yeah, pretty much that. I think. Yeah. And finally, am I? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. You're back on the main stage.
Yeah. The other thing as well is like this pressure, like all of us black men, we're like holding the future of Black mankind on our shoulders based on who we have kids with. I think that's a lot to put on someone. I don't think that's true at all. Like, I'm just one person, and if I wasn't spiritual, I might see myself as important as a monkey, and I don't really think the monkeys are considering all of this stuff when they find a mate. And that's as far as I'm gonna take it. So.
Thank you, sir. So I guess there goes it. This was part 2 of interracial relationships, and really, like I said, the brainchild came from a statement my brother made. We've cleaned it up, we've ironed it out, but we've also been able to delve into other topics just to see and just consider. But these are just merely conversations to spur conversations with anybody watching it. You can kind of say, well, we're just a family here talking about how we feel. So, any comments, please be respectful. We're just kind of giving you our opinions on what we see and how we feel, but it's not meant to be gospel truth. I think what's the overlying theme from everyone is, be true to yourself, love yourself. Brother's talking about conditioning. there is conditioning, but it's like he's like saying, it's subjective. Whatever you feel is right for you, then it's right for you. But what I would like to do, what I want to put out there in the atmosphere is, we're all growing. We stop growing, then we die. So if there's something going on, as opposed to judging one other person to explain away your preference for another, or to justify your preference for another person, that's when it becomes an issue. But also, I do love the awareness when I'm listening to my brothers talk, because all my brothers with children are great, dedicated fathers. And so I'm very proud of that when I see that. But it's like, to explain away, putting someone down to explain away your preference, what we definitely don't want. And then just to appreciate what is. It's like interracial relationships are not going anywhere. I'm not even saying that it's going to wipe out, one color or the other, but I just definitely don't want, people feeling less than, just walking into a room or feeling like, oh, I can't be in a certain relationship. And of course, I think last week we mentioned, just to, mention that for females too, because we only kind of talked about men this week, because I'm writing around brother.
That could be part 3, no? Like the female perspective.
We'll see. I'll see how it goes if the females want to talk. But with females too, it's like, I definitely want y'all to be more open to not just, because there's something you said, Ayo, as I'm coming out of my recap. There's something when you said that you know what, how did you put it? Like, you know, in terms of the preference, you know, how should I put it cleanly? In terms of preference for a woman, it's like if one person does, if a person A does something wrong, should you now discount A? And the truth is you shouldn't, because if you think about Black women as a whole, you hear a lot of Black women, particularly in this country, like they've been dogged out, they've been abused, they've had all these things going on coming from Black men, but they still don't say, oh, I'm not going to do a Black man anymore. I'm not going to that never comes up. And they get criticized for just having that preference. For open up your basket, open up your choices. And that's what I want to emphasize. Women, open up your choices. It doesn't have to be one color, it doesn't have to be one shade. It just has to be who is on the inside, who's in front of you that shares your values and can respect and love you the way you need to be loved. Because you don't have to be in a relationship. You should want to be in it. But if it's not worth it to you, don't be in it. Be by yourself. You'll be happier. So yeah, this is really, that's pretty much all I wanted us to kind of recap on, because to me that's what
Can
matters.
I say one last controversial thing though, based on the last thing you said?
Okay.
Also, and obviously this is going out to the women too, maybe just be honest, because that conversation comes up quite a bit about, you know, well, we're only dating, you know, the dark-skinned man, the light-skinned man. You're not doing it as charity for anybody. You're doing it because that's what you want to do. So be real. Obviously, listen to my sister. Open your horizons. But if you don't want to, don't expect a Nobel Prize. Like, that's your choice. That's what you're doing there. That's, you know, just because love is like that. It would be weird if you were doing it for somebody else, you know. You're doing it for yourself. So do it for yourself and do it properly.
Boom.
And the
I only like
Clan,
Black girls. We get big boom boom.
Really, take one back to mute your mic, sir.
Nothing wrong with that, bro. Nothing wrong with that, my
you've
brother.
heard it from the Ajisafe Clan, everyone. Thank you for listening to us down to this point. We'll definitely be having other topics. So if there's anything you guys want to mention, throw it in the comments down here and we'll bring it up and talk. You can see my brothers love to chit chat. Like, we could be on here all day, but we definitely want you to get the content and get the point behind it. So it's meant to be fun, laughter, entertainment, but also learning in this whole thing as well. So guys, we're going to be like really over and out. I'm about to end this broadcast. So everybody, yo, peace out.